You're trying to find some optimism in what are bleak headlines as well. What is sort of your macro take on the market setup? You've really been diving into the COVID story as well. Is that going to be the mover for the equity markets in the next still couple weeks or months?
Yeah, good morning, Brian. I think central to how investors make decisions today, it's still a lot about the macro. And I think the thing that dominates macro today is COVID because it affects central banks, policymakers, and investor confidence. So it's central. And I'd say there's good news on that front because I think there are some catalysts coming together for this week.
And what are the big catalysts outside of some of the still continuing COVID data?
On the COVID side, last night when we did the update, it looks like 38 states out of 50 now have promising trends in COVID, and that's up from only 12 2 weeks ago. So I think more states are really seeing the peak in Delta variant. And in addition to that, this week we've got the SALT conference starting this week. It's really the first comprehensive in-person financial conference since COVID started. So I think it's going to be, a confidence booster for investors to actually sort of see each other again in person. And on top of that, we've got a consumer confidence survey coming out Friday, which I just think, it was a shock in August because it was such a negative reading. And, it's kind of a win-win now because if it's slightly worse, it puts the Fed on hold. But if it improves, people will view this as a bottom in confidence, and that's a bullish signal for stocks. And there's a strange seasonal underway, which is this sell Rosh Hashanah by Yom Kippur, and that's actually on Thursday.
Yeah.
And I think because data's so daily, it's actually a bigger role this year.
Yeah, and by the way, that has tended to play out. And listen, to be fair, if Dr. Gottlieb and others are correct, we're probably going to see a pop in cases here in the Northeast as schools come back in and seasonality trends. You've talked about and I have talked about the so-called air conditioning states, inside bad, outside good. So there might be some bumps in the road, but overall it sounds like you are functionally positive. You also have been sort of banging the drum on energy. Are you still bullish on oil and oil stocks in particular, Tom?
Yeah, absolutely. Energy has had just a tough couple of months. Energy stocks, even though oil's actually hung in there. And, I think from a demand perspective, oil still has a decent demand picture and a shortage of supply. So I think oil has upside. But that means there's a big catch-up trade in energy stocks relative to oil. And I think energy is viewed as sort of the highest beta version of epicenter. And, as people worried about Delta and the economic effects, they've kind of sold these off. So I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic about energy.